Five. Hey, Yusuf, how is it going? I hear you're kind of being a digital nomad these days. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm actually in Oceanside, California right now. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm back in Chicago. I took I guess a weekend or a 2-day trip to California, and man, coming back was brutal. I took the red eye and I was just completely wiped.
Whenever I hear about you making trips, man, I know big deals are being made.
Well, it was actually pretty cool. I had a chance to meet with Patrick Byrne from Overstock.com.
Nice.
So he's got Overstock, and he's got this initiative called T Zero. I don't know if you've heard of T Zero before,
No, I haven't
but
heard zero.
what they're doing, and he was explaining to me, and I get it, but I'm not in the market, but you might even know this. Like apparently most stocks are still settled like on a paper system still. Like there's like a
Mm,
backwards archaic system, and the T Zero, it's one of the biggest ICOs. They're gonna raise like hundreds of millions of dollars. But
mm.
yeah, they're gonna go, they're gonna conquer the world, and it's kind of exciting, I guess, when it looks like
Nice,
that.
man.
But I wanted to kind of talk actually, because it's funny. I know you made your prediction on Friday. I think you said it was gonna hit 72 or 73 or something. And I vividly remember because I took a red eye back on Saturday and I was just completely hosed. And by the time, like, I think you had texted me, and by the time I woke up, it had hit that bounce and then came back and
Right.
then some. So, why don't you take a second and talk about, what you saw this weekend and what's going on? And I'll kind of let you kind of talk about where the technicals telling us.
Sure. So when we were speaking, I think that it was Friday. I was telling you those certain levels to pay attention to. I trade Bitcoin a lot, so I'm really familiar with how the currency or the asset just kind of reacts or responds to certain areas. So that $7,200 level was a really important area. And I knew that once we got down there, the demand was going to be relatively strong and it would be consistent or confluent with a bounce, a pretty strong bounce in the opposite direction of the market. So I think when we first spoke, we took our positions like around 9,000 or 9,000 and change, and we shorted the market all the way down. We've seen a little bit of a pullback in between then, but 7,200 was always the target. And I kind of walked you and Lawrence, I just shared that information of where we're going. So the big thing that I try to stress to people is that, a lot of people can have opinions on where the market is going to head. Very few people will be able to implement actionable steps in taking advantage of those movements. So that's something that I'm really proud about. And I just tried my very best to kind of convey those actual steps, what they were in real time and what our targets were. And for those that are listening, it's when you're executing a game plan in the market, there's sometimes things will happen within those spaces that may that may cause you to question certain steps or that may cause some hesitation. But we had a pretty good game plan as far as what was going to happen with Bitcoin. So we executed that and we got to the levels we were anticipating. And then from there, the market pretty much responded accordingly. So it was a really good week as far as what happened with the crypto for us, even in a down market. So that's something we're excited about. And yeah, if you want, I can share with you guys some charts. I'm gonna try to keep the charts like super, super, super simple. I'm getting some requests now for people wanting to learn how to trade, read charts. So those type of requests are coming in. So I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible so that you guys could just understand what's happening, get just a wide view, a big frame on the overall sentiment in the market. And I have to preface that with the sentiment is not how you take actionable steps. So that's something a little bit different. And as we continue to do these things, I can show you guys how to take actionable steps and take advantage of those movements.
So I'm gonna say stop talking and show the charts, man. We all want to see the charts.
All right, let me show you a chart. Give me 1 second. Let's see. All right, you guys can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's just so for the people that have been following my charts, I've offered so much confluence as far as where the market was going. And to just to kind of give you guys just a very, very basic idea of why I felt the market was coming down here was that Bitcoin, there's certain patterns in the market. So, and each pattern that comes together provides a certain probability outcome. So Bitcoin provided us a descending triangle that kind of gave us a probability that we're going a lot lower. So the key thing is a lot of people can draw up charts, but I trade primarily on probability. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen for sure in the market, but what I do know is that I could take high probability trades, and that's what I'm trying to show you guys today. So if you guys look at here, here's this red line right here, just the main downtrend line for Bitcoin. And we've had certain areas that we had to pay attention to. And I put those areas in this blue bar. So this right here between the $11,000 range, that was a support that turned resistance area. Then we came back down here. If you guys can see what's in red, these bars in red, that's downward movement. These bars in green, that's upwards movement. So we came down on the asset down to the 7,800 range, and we shot down to $6,000. We bounced back up. But the key thing I want to show you guys is that Bitcoin has always formed lower lows. So until we start seeing a higher high, we can't really start getting excited about a buying opportunity. So let me show you what that means. So here right here is all these areas, these are lower lows right here. So the people that's getting excited to buy it, I can't really offer that much confidence because all of these peaks, they're all lower to each other. So as long as Bitcoin is forming lower lows, you have to take it that it's still selling off. And as a technician, you want to look for selling opportunities. So here's this main downtrend line right here. You see all of these, they're lower than each other that I plotted right here in these red, pink circles. So with that, and that we're still trading below this main downtrend line, we're trading under resistance. And this is just a very simple, basic idea to kind of get you guys to understand the market sentiment. You have to remain bearish, or you have to have a selling position on an asset as such. And that goes for any asset, not just Bitcoin. So until we start forming higher highs than the previous lows, you just can't get excited about going long or being a bullish holder on Bitcoin. So for the people that are in Bitcoin that may be seeing this information late, the best thing that I could offer you guys, and it's not financial advice, is just to hold on to the crypto. The market is going to turn around. That's my belief. If you are new to the market looking to get in, then you don't have to FOMO or rush into a decision because there's going to be so much upside opportunity. And I was just sharing this with Charles. It's going to be so much upside opportunity. There's no need to, rush or feel like you're going to miss out on something in the event that, Bitcoin starts to turn up. My idea on this is that I don't think we're done selling off on Bitcoin for a number of reasons. And I kind of referenced that to a prior plot with a lot more detail. In my view, Bitcoin can easily go down to $5,300. I think capitulation can be as low as $3,000. And I said this, I think like a month ago, Charles, on our first video or something like that.
Yeah.
And like maybe last week, now the reports are coming out 2,800. So, I like to toot my horn a little bit, pat myself on the back. But these are things that people who are trading and serious technicians have seen. So there's a lot of bearish or downside marks on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. And the market could easily, in my view, come down a lot more, even cut in half for where it is right now. And in the event that we see that, I think that's a great opportunity for new crypto investors. We're going to see some accumulation at the bottom. It's not going to just skyrocket back up. So for you guys that are waiting for Bitcoin just to skyrocket, you might be waiting for a little while, because if we do get down to those levels, there's going to be some accumulation. The accumulation period is going to take a little bit of time, and then we'll start to see that volatility again. So I just want you guys to kind of think of it in a practical sense. If you're driving a car and that car drives, and you're doing 100 miles per hour for a month, you're just driving, you're going to have to, stop. You have to get some gas. You're going to have to stretch. So, and then you'll be able to start driving fast again. So just think of it like that. If you're dropping this hard, you're not going to just shoot right back up the opposite direction. You're going to take some time. You're going to catch your breath, and then you're going to work the other way. So that accumulation period is going to give a lot of people opportunity to get back into the market. So don't panic. We're going to have plenty of time to take advantage of these movements.
So question for you, I guess. So I'm looking at the chart, and I remember you talked that, the double bounces or whatever. And right, I look at the December, you've got this you've got the dips and the pops, and is that the right term? Like it dips and it bounces and dips and bounces and dips and bounces. But what's intriguing, it looks like, well, I guess I don't know yet, right? But it looks like we're backing it up. It didn't dip as low as it did in late February. So would that potentially be an upward trend, or are you still saying it's a downward trend? How do you look at this? How do you understand this, right? Because I'm looking at, I guess, that square on the second, and that looks like, the indicator, the two valleys, it's kind of going in an upward direction, right?
You're looking at this area right here and this area right here.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. So looking at this area, if you wanted to use that as a point of reference, that's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But because of that higher low, it still does not negate this lower high here. So technically, if you wanted to use that area as a point of reference, the best you could offer this is a neutral bearish scenario. And going long and taking a buy position on Bitcoin in this area, this is a daily chart, so it would have worked out for you a little bit. But if you notice, you don't really have that much upside because you have this main downtrend line here. So to answer your question, it is a real possibility because we do have this higher low. But we have way more bearish sentiment to where I can't give too much stock or credit to this. So I have to remain bearish at best, neutral bearish, but I would have to remain bearish on it because I could see this thing bouncing and, coming back down for another dip. And there's a lot of confluence there for it as well, as far as the patterns, as far as Fibonacci's, you name it, there's a lot of confluence there. But if it does turn around, that's wonderful. I would just be waiting for a breakout of this main downtrend line, a pullback, and then the upward momentum. So, and we're like 8,500 right here. If it was to break out, we're looking at 9,500, $10,000. So it's really marginal. And if you're one of the people like I am that believe Bitcoin is going to be a six-figure asset, then if you're a buy and holder, then do whatever you want, I suppose, buy at whatever price. But for someone that's looking to be a little more strategic, it makes a lot more practical sense just to wait for the market to kind of evolve.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you're saying, I guess as a short term, what the technicals are telling you is, yes, there is a possibility that Bitcoin will go up, but is that a 50% possibility and that's too risky for you? Because you still also see a 50% possibility that Bitcoin could bounce back down to, I think you said, 5,200 or 5,800 or something like that earlier?
Yeah, technically I have a 79% probability that Bitcoin is going to kiss 5,300 at least once for me. So that's a pretty high probability. I mean, Bitcoin's been known to kind of defy some laws and some technical standards. But if we're talking about investing, there's just no way I can get long on it right now, just because the odds are simply not in its favor right now to actually go up in value. But if we was to break some levels, then that could change. So Tuesday is one of the prime days with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I call it turnaround Tuesdays. So we're really going to see what Bitcoin is made of on Tuesday as far as which direction it wants to go.
Oh, wow. And what would happen, I guess, and help me understand, or, our audience understand. Okay, so you're saying, as the chart tells you, it's a 73% chance, if I understand you correctly, that it's going to hit 5,800. And what if the chart continues, like what if it shoots up to 9,500 by tomorrow? That changes it, or that increases or lowers it, or like what will the chart tell you based on activity, what the handicaps are, right? Because ultimately we're all making calculated bets to some extent.
Sure. Yeah, and price action, and this is why I speak on how important price action is. Price action is king. If for the people that's been trading Bitcoin, they've noticed that there's been some violations in price action, making it a little bit more difficult of late to get in really good positions, because Bitcoin has risen to certain levels that may violate a sell, or dropped to certain levels that might violate a buy, so on and so forth. But that's kind of a different conversation. However, to kind of speak to your question a little bit more clearer, what I'm looking for is just a clear violation of support and resistance along with other confluences. But I really don't think that's going to happen. So my sights right now is looking for selling opportunities, because we're in a consolidation market. So I'm really looking for selling opportunities unless price does something extremely impressive to show me otherwise, which I just don't see that happening right now. I just don't see that happening as far as Bitcoin just flying off the handle. But if it does, I will be around $9,500, $10,000, a break around there. And then I'll be extremely patient, wait for a pullback back down into that same range, 9,000, 9,200, and then I'll go up with it. So if it was to go bullish, meaning to go up in price, I probably wouldn't be in Bitcoin on a buy until maybe even next week. So that shows discipline and just patience in these type of things. And in crypto, a company with a lack of understanding and knowledge is also a lack of discipline and patience. So like, I can't stress enough, you do not have to rush into this thing. Like, you're going to have so much time. Just let this thing evolve. Let this thing give some clear confluence on which direction it wants to go. And you're going to have a lot of meat on that bone to kind of take advantage of it.
Interesting. So I have a piece of fundamental information, and I'd be curious. I guess, I wonder if I'm going to pollute you with fundamental details, right?
But no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead and pollute me away.
Okay, so you talked about Tuesday is going to be a big day. Well, interesting enough today, there is the G20 summit is going on today. And for anyone who doesn't know, basically the G20 summit is the big annual meeting between like central banks and the governments of the world, and has representatives from basically every major country that means anything. Not that other countries don't mean anything, but in terms of economic power, and in the crypto space, a lot of them mirror, right? So Japan's going to be there, Korea's there, China's there, Russia and the US will be there too. And specifically, there is two talks that are pretty important. One is by Argentina. The Treasury Minister is going to talk about crypto. And the other is OECD. And I would imagine the talks, or the, you talk about sentiment and buy and sell orders. And the reality here is, because it's such a consumer-driven market, people are buying on emotion all day and all night. But this is something that could impact a bunch of stuff and maybe swing it one way or another, right? So specifically, let's go back to OECD. I can't even talk right now. OECD has spoken out about, how crypto exchanges have kind of gotten too far. First it was the Wild West where, any coin with a pulse, not even a pulse, you could have a half dead coin like Dogecoin, was getting listed and pumped. And now what's happened is, like, the pendulum was over here. They're now saying it's gone the other side, where because exchanges are kind of scared silly because they don't want to get subpoenaed, they don't want all this stuff going on. They're now cracking down on regulation, requiring like you got to, give your firstborn child, a fingerprint, a retina scan, and everything just to open, just to go buy some Bitcoin. They're now doing that. Now it's saying they're going too far. So this would be interesting because if OCED pushes this and saying, hey, governments, you guys are going too far regulating, you guys need to ease up, and that ultimately affects, central banks and all that sort of stuff, and, they kind of, the pendulum kind of equals out a little bit, that could be pretty big. And, the other thing too, speaking of which, I don't know if you saw, but like, Kevin O'Leary mentioned at a talk, one of the shark guys said that he's got a ton of crypto and he's going long on crypto too. So not saying Kevin O'Leary knows everything, I guess he's Mr. Wonder. Is he Mr. Wonderful?
Yeah, he's Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah,
I like Kevin O'Leary a lot too. He's one of my favorite sharks, if not my favorite shark. He's hilarious.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful is all in, or not all in. He's long on crypto. But regardless, if basically the OECD is saying, hey, you guys got to chill out on regulation and kind of swing back over, I think consumer sentiment could change in a positive direction. And maybe we might have a breakout or not. But, again, my crystal ball isn't the greatest in the world. And, we'll just see how the technicals go. And I guess you're right. That is basically a big gamble versus looking at the indicators, right? Because let's say it's even 50-50. You wouldn't take a 50-50 trade, right? You're a type of guy who wants, like, what's your percentage? You want to be like at 70 or 80 or whatever? Yeah,
I like to have at least a 70 or 80% probability. That's where I'm comfortable at.
Nice.
Because with those type of odds, you could really get comfortable into your trades. And to kind of lean on what you're saying, anyone should be, in my opinion at least, anyone should be long on crypto. So the thing is that we're really just splitting hairs. We're talking about trading. So in the long term, if I buy Bitcoin at 5,000 and someone else buys Bitcoin at 7,000, it's not that big of a difference. But if you're margin trading, for instance, then it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So most people, if not all the people that's probably listening to this, they're not margin trading. So there's really no issue there. If we're just buying it dollar for dollar and you're just holding it, yeah, absolutely. Me personally, I want to try to bring my dollar cost averaging down as low as possible for Bitcoin. So, when I first bought it, it was at 17. Second time I bought it was at 6. And if I could buy it again at 3, buy it again at 5, that's fantastic. And that's what I'll be looking to do. So, but absolutely, you should be long crypto, in my view. Bitcoin is going to be just fine. Litecoin, Ethereum is going to be just fine, in my view. But a lot, and to also make a point, Kevin O'Leary has a lot of money. So for the rest of us that may not have hundreds of millions or billions, I think he's a billionaire. So buying, if Kevin buys Bitcoin at $8,000, he doesn't care at all. He doesn't care if it goes to 2,000. I would imagine he wouldn't care very much if it went to 2,000 because he understands the platform, understands the technology, understands crypto and what space that it's in. So he's not really sweating it. But for some of the rest of us that may not have those resources, buying Bitcoin at 10,000 or 6,000 is a pretty big deal. So I want people to try to get the best bargain as possible. But at the same time, I don't want people to fear of missing out of an opportunity because at the end of the day, we still have so much upside to go.
No, definitely. So moving on from that, so Kevin O'Leary's big on it. This is actually interesting. We've already heard that Venezuela has issued their ICO. I found an interesting thing. While I was in San Francisco, I met some people from I think it was the city of Berkeley, and a municipal, like they're doing it instead of like a traditional municipal bond. And I didn't understand exactly, but like the city is doing an ICO on some sort of stuff also. So like they're tokenizing. And, regardless whether it's, if it's a US government or whatever. When regulatory authorities start looking at this, I look at that as a really positive sign. Specifically, the host of the G20, I believe, is Argentina. And right now, Argentina, which has known to have had some issues over the last years with inflation and stuff like that, they're trying to kind of propel themselves to the front of the line. They want to fix their economy. And recently they've had some bad droughts. So literally they are trying to, or it's not, we don't know what's going to happen because the talk hasn't occurred yet. But, word on the street is that Argentina is going to make a proposal and use maybe that to kind of do a deal between, South America and the EU, or, who knows on that side. So, it's kind of interesting to see. I mean, there's a lot of fascinating thing. Now, the one thing I think which is fascinating, I don't know if you saw, do you follow Warren Buffett at all?
Absolutely.
So did you hear about the letter he issued, his advisement that came out over the weekend?
In regards to cryptos?
No, not in crypto, in terms of just the market and even just how he looks at his investments and stuff.
I missed that. What did he say?
He basically said to shareholders, Buffett to Berkshire shareholders, be prepared to lose half your money.
God.
The market. So this is literally his latest annual letter to shareholders. And it's not, it came out a week or two, but he's basically saying with how the market is, and this is the guy that's always been up, a 50% downtick on the stock is not unreasonable. He's just be up, be ready for it and everything on this. If you look at historically, basically, and this is the stock market, so we know the crypto market's even more volatile. If you look historically on the Buffett side, there have been times where it's dropped 50%, the whole stock price, right? Back in 2008, it dropped 50%. Back in, the dot-com boom, it dropped 50%. And what he's saying is, crashes like this are normal and they're to be expected. So right now we're sitting at a 60 to 70% drop on crypto. And, people are panicking and hands are starting to shake a little bit. And,
of course.
And, even in the stock market, you've got the most successful investor just saying hey, crashes are going to happen. No one can tell you when these can happen, right? The light can go anytime from green to red without even a yellow signal. But the way, and I'm just summing up his letters, the best way is, what he believes is kind of this dollar cost averaging aspect, and not to put in more than you can lose, and always have a war chest so that when things crash, you're poised to take advantage of it on that side. So just thought it was kind of interesting. It's the guy who's known to be the steadiest person of all, who just went out and said in his letter a week ago or something, saying, yeah, be prepared for another 50% drop. It's about that time.
The gig is up.
No, he's it's been basically, if you look at it, every 10 years, something happens. So if you go back to his history, 2008, 2009, tanked 50%, dot-com boom, tanked 50%. Back in the late 80s, I think maybe it was savings and loan or whatever, only tanked 40%. Going back to the mid 70s, when OPEC or whatever blew up, it tanked 60%. He's just yeah, it happens. You go, you deal with it. But, all in all, he's still up and he's outperforming. So, I think it's kind of interesting in terms of how people can, stay on, and, you just got to be able to have the constitution just to kind of, take it. You know what I mean? So,
no, that's very true. That's very true. I think I would almost make the argument that in cryptocurrency, that the technicals can sometimes trump the fundamentals, in the sense that I can see things on the technical side that I may learn about what may have, quote unquote, I put an asterisk on that, what may have driven that on the fundamental side several days or sometimes even a week later. So you're telling me about this meeting, and as this progresses in price, I could most likely see some type of consolidation or some type of retracement that may suggest that there is an impediment on the price or something that may be affecting the direction before it takes place. So it's really interesting when you look at the two on the fundamental and the technical to see how they kind of work together, coincide. So my biggest thing, and has always been, is just trying to give people just a broader view so they can kind of understand, okay, what market we're in. If people can understand that, then it's a big deal. So, and there's so much fundamentals news, some very reliable, and some is just flat out rumors when it comes with cryptocurrency. And sometimes for a retail or a mom and pop investor, it's really hard to kind of distinguish the two. So making sure you're getting reliable information, that's really, really important when you're coming to this crypto space.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, going on in terms of, fundamentals or whatnot, right? With all the ups and downs, I think fundamentally speaking, we have to look at crypto as a technology play.
Right.
And look at the technology, what's cool is, despite all the ups and downs, despite the fact that, this stuff's going to get regulated to who knows what or whatnot, technology continues to advance. And, there are two notable things that have occurred. One was the whole SegWit adoption, that started with the success, the soft fork from earlier this last fall. And more and more, it's actually getting implemented. So between SegWit and the Lightning Network, those are two big things I think that are going to continue to advance the adoption of, crypto and all that sort of stuff on that front. I think it's kind of cool. The other thing too is, with Ethereum, Ethereum has been having some issues with all the criticism, right? The crypto kitties took it out or whatnot, and they continue, to keep pushing forward. They're moving, they've got their upcoming Casper upgrade, which is under testing. And then they've got a bunch of other stuff going on the Ethereum side that, from projects to updates and everything like that, they continue moving, right? So you've got the Raiden network, where basically it's a version of Ethereum on the Lightning Network where they're doing machine-to-machine payments and trying to implement smart contracts and IoT devices. You've also got Modem that's continuing to move forward. That's an interconnected supply chain for large businesses and it's focusing on the pharma industry. You've got Omisco. I don't know if you follow Omisco or anything like that, but they're a pretty cool decentralized off-chain payment solution, which is for all sorts of value exchanges. So not just payments, but like stored value, gift cards, airline miles, and everything like that. That keeps pushing. Gollum continues to move forward and stuff like that. So those are all great things. And what was interesting too was I actually also had a chance. I don't know if you follow Cardano at all. Do you trade Cardano at all? Are you familiar with them at all?
I actually got in a little bit of Cardano maybe a couple weeks ago. Took a position on Cardano.
Oh, nice. So I don't know if you did it long or if you're just buying it because, but I actually got a chance to listen to Charlie, who's the guy in charge of what's called IOHK, which is like it's the company behind Cardano and Ethereum Classic. And, the guy the guy's incredibly smart. You listen to him and everything like that, you're like, wow, you got guys like that can basically literally like invent shoot rockets to the moon. In their sleep and, lots of positivity, I think, going on, from a tech side. So I'm not saying that, it's ready to like, change it, but like progress continues to move forward. Also, if you look at the rest of the world, and this goes back to crypto, I think the dollar continues to weaken a little bit. People are getting a little more concerned about putting money into dollar. I actually stumbled upon an article by a guy called, basically it was a LinkedIn article, and he was part of a big banking conglomerate. And he was calling for, 13 African countries to basically say, hey, we've built our Africa has built their whole currency base or their banking system, pegged to the dollar. Maybe we should, and look, that hasn't gotten us to where it needs to go. Maybe we should look at other options. Maybe we should peg to Bitcoin. If we want to jump ahead and get developing infrastructure, get investment into Africa, staying on the dollar, which everyone seems to be kind of jumping away from, might not be the smart thing. And, he probably went a little too, well, I don't know if he went, bankers are really conservative, but he went out and said, hey, if, instead of putting, 5% of their gold reserves into gold, if you just flip that into Bitcoin, think of how much wealth that would bring, to the banking systems and stuff like that. If you just done it last year and, still moving forward, there still is, that type of an appreciation. So, that's big. If you actually look at hedge fund activity, hedge fund movements, people are actually kind of trying to get out of the dollar. Like, I'm not saying like, it's not like the dollar's going to is going
right,
to,
of course.
But, the trends are moving away, So if you look at like in February, February, and this isn't just crypto, February sucked for everybody. Basically, the hedge funds in general, they got wiped, their returns fell. Most of their January gains were wiped out. And a lot of them are trying to move away from, the dollar into other, precious metals, maybe, resources and things like that, because, confidence in the dollar is, I guess, because of fiscal policy and all that sort of stuff that we may or may not agree with, is not exactly that exciting. Now, going into it, I think last thing I just want to bring up, there is, and this might go back to the regulatory side, it's gotten interesting. What I found out at the conference is that people are literally going nuts. Like the SEC and stuff is just going crazy in terms of regulating ICOs. So I think if you look at it from that side, this is a good opportunity, I feel, because like there's so much crackdown going down. Everyone's looking at it. So literally, like, basically everyone, who has launched an ICO, put out a token, or, anything like that, the SEC is finally saying, yeah, we're investigating everybody.
Right.
We're investigating everybody. And, the statute of limitations on the SEC, I don't know the rules specifically, but it's my understanding it's really long, or it's like indefinite. Like they can come get you for anything when it comes, to securities fraud. And what they're basically saying is that even if it's coined a utility token, they don't care. They're saying like they're just gonna like launch it as a security. And I even got, it was funny. I actually was, we're in the process of putting an ICO together. We got advice from people saying, if you want to do a token sale in the US, you've got to do like, fill out, you got to fall under like Reg D, and you got to do like 20 million things. And it's going to cost you like $250,000 to apply by US standards.
Right, absolutely.
Or you could just say go with accredited investors and go international. You don't have to worry about anything.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. You know what I mean? And there was basically, this goes back to this like Kevin O'Leary thing. There was an MIT Bitcoin expo, and basically people are saying, people are feeling that the U.S. regulators, like every token will just be viewed as a security. So, that's kind of concerning, which is what it is. I guess you just got to follow the rules, right? So with that, I don't know if you heard, did you hear about like what happened with Munchie?
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Munchie had the SEC really cranked down on Munchie. Let me go find out what Munchie was about. So, let me share my screen. So I'm going to pull up the SEC ruling on this. Munchie was literally do you see my screen okay?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, yeah. So this was back in December. Basically, Munchie was like a blockchain-based food reserve review service,
Mm.
and they were looking to get 15 million bucks to like update their iPhone app and make an ecosystem for tokens and all that sort of stuff. And basically, they said they issued them a cease and desist. They said,
Mm.
"Sorry, we think it's a token. We don't like it, or we think it's a security. We don't really like it." If you look at Munchie, yeah, they basically shut it down.
Mm. How do you feel about that? You feel like that's a good thing as far as the SEC getting involved and cleaning house a little bit?
You know, so I had a conversation, and this was an off-the-record conversation, and myself and the Overstock guy were talking about this.
Mm.
And what's happened is you've gotten like all this fraud, right? There was like another token I think I read about last week where, they raised $5 million, and if you go to their website now, it just says like, basically says fuck off or something like, it's like something.
Exactly. We're out of here.
So, yeah, no, literally. And I guess it's one of those, I'm kind of conflicted because I can see both sides of it. You know what? I was I was surfing Facebook, and I saw a meme saying that, it was fake news and FUD, and it's not related to crypto investing, but it was just in general. I saw a meme that said, tell the governor of California that he sucks because he approved a bill requiring all California children to learn Arabic numerals, down with Sharia law.
Mm.
So obviously, that is very controversial. People are like, what the heck? Are we like, is the country burning down? Blah, blah, blah. Why are our kids learning Arabic numerals? Let's step back, right? Arabic numerals that's the number one, like our numbering system is based on, Arabic.
Right.
So the fact that post garnered so much engagement and so much outrage, it's crazy. And I don't want to like say people are stupid, but when you see that sort of stuff, it just kind of shakes your head. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I honestly don't know. I mean, on one hand, you've got people, literally like raising pitchforks and thinking that, California's going under Sharia law because, we're learning numbers.
Right.
Arabic, but that's like what? That's like the numbers we use. Like, where are we going to go? Like, go to cuneiform or, use Roman numerals? I mean,
right.
You know what I mean? And on the other hand, you've got people that are just like shysters. I mean, did you ever play the game or did you ever hear about Riot Blockchain at all?
Riot Blockchain.
Yeah, did you ever hear about those guys?
I didn't play. Tell me about that. What happened there?
Oh, you would love this. This is, it was a pure pump. Let me go back. So this was a company.
I've seen some pumps in my days. I've seen some pumps.
And it's probably better. It's worse now, but these guys, their name was a company called, yeah. So if you look back, and now like they've changed a bunch of stuff, but let me find their stock price. So if you go back to like 1 year on them, back in like May, they were a medical devices company. So if I go Riot Blockchain, Bioptics. So basically, a Bloomberg, like this was like the first thing that came out. They were a medical devices company called Bioptics that just changed their name to Riot Blockchain. So they had nothing to do with Bitcoin or anything. They just changed their name. And that alone, if you go back, this was like back in October. So go back to October, name change, boom, boom, boom during the whole craze, because you had people that were just, Coinbase isn't easy to use. Gemini isn't easy to use. So everyone wanted to, invest into Bitcoin.
Right.
And this was literally an SEO play where, because like they listed on Ameritrade, and the person's like, okay, I wanted to invest in 2 or 3 blockchain things because I read about Bitcoin in the news or saw it on CNBC. I'm just going to go, click on Riot Blockchain, buy some stocks, ride that babe puppy up, and invest in the long run without even realizing. I mean, a simple Google search would have found out that, number one biotech company, this is Bloomberg picking it up, and they didn't even lie about it. They're public, so they had to state that, hey, that's what we're doing. So,
man. That's
I
rough.
mean, it's one thing to buy into it, knowing that it's a scam and knowing that there's a greater fool theory. You know what I mean? Like when you're trading and you're not trying to screw people in any way, you're looking at the trend and you're saying the trend is going up, so I'm going to make a calculated bet on the trend, right?
Absolutely.
That's one thing to do that. It's another thing to buy a company or buy a crypto thinking that it's got something when in reality it's not. Do you see what I mean? And if you go back to ICOs, in 2017, there's been, I think someone did a note on it. There's a 48% or there's let me look this up again. I read an article. I don't know if I don't know if it's true or not. ICO 2007 failure rate, but there was some study done on this basically. And, I don't know if this is going to be true or not, but I'm going to trust that, this is a Fortune article, so maybe I should have questioned it more. But it said basically nearly half of the 2017 ICOs have raised.
I've seen that reported a couple of times.
Yeah. So could this be fake news? Could this be FUD? I don't know, but given how ICOs have come about, and, we looked at some of these ICOs, we kind of I don't like investing in ICOs because it's just way too risky. You see what I mean? Now, that being said, we are doing our own ICOs. It's a different story because it's a much better position when you literally print your tokens out of thin air instead of, investing in someone else's concept and things like that. But that's, I mean, it's kind of, I guess, there's a side of me that wants, I think if ICOs or IPOs are too easy, I think that creates problems. You see what I mean? So I think having a few barriers to entry is a good thing. Have a business, make some money, you know what I mean? Do all that sort of stuff. And the thing is, I think what's happened is I still have, I've got a friend that's done this, where you had companies that were businesses that were trying to raise money. They couldn't quite raise money, so then they pivoted to ICOs and, tacked on blockchain and are raising money for their own company through blockchain and stuff like that.
That's very true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm kind of carping a little bit.
I mean, even when you look at some of these more bigger reputable companies like Kodak, when they've expressed and started divulging interest in the blockchain technology, seeing their stock prices improve. So I mean, people are enamored with blockchain and crypto right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I still believe one of these days I got to get you to come with me to one of these crypto conferences. The energy is just amazing right now. It's awesome. It's reminds me, and I was too young when I got into the internet space, so I caught the tail end of the .com boom. Literally, we walked into this, Jerome and I walked into this conference, and they had filled up the entire hall of the San Francisco Exploratorium, and it was packed. There were people there, and it was completely packed. But then on the flip side, when you're walking through these booths, there's a crypto for everything. It's just, you're just looking at this oh my gosh, you're a blockchain.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel that we're oversaturated with crypto applications?
I look at that, and the thing is, there's no question we're in a bubble. It's just where we are in the bubble, right? So if you look at it, every 5 years when the new thing comes out, you always have everyone jumping in, right? So what was the latest? Remember, it was we're the, 5 years ago, we're the Uber for dry cleaners. We're the Uber for this. We're going to do Uber for plumbers. We're the Uber for, dressmakers and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
I guess when that stuff comes in, or if you go back, 8 years back, there was like a Groupon for everything, right? We're the Groupon for, fat people. We're the Groupon for
Right,
skinny
right.
people. We're the Groupon
Right.
for tall people.
Right.
So when those things come around, it's definitely concerning, but it's also, I guess this goes to competition. So I'm a personal believer. I actually prefer competition in a market than a market with no competition.
Of course.
Because if it's a market with no competition, that means either I'm a genius and I figured out something where no one else has and I'm not that smart, or there's just no market. Versus if
Mm.
there's a market with competition, there's a lot of people, and I'm confident in my ability to like hammer out a niche.
Right, right.
So that's just me. Like it kind of goes back to, this goes back to maybe the number one rule of marketing. Don't sell the broke people. Don't sell the people where there's no money. Do you see what I
Exactly.
mean? So that's just my opinion. So I look at all this ICO stuff. It's obviously concerning, but it's also exciting because of the opportunity. And I think, it's always hindsight's 2020, right? Is it going to be as easy, to do an ICO this summer as it was last summer? Last summer, if you had a pulse, you could just
Exactly.
put a white
Oh,
paper out and
absolutely.
raise like $20
Absolutely.
million or whatever. Now, I think a lot of those people, what's going to happen is they're going to end up kind of getting hosed on the
Mm.
back end. Do you see what I mean? Because
Mm.
someone's gonna go to jail. I mean, it's it's gonna happen.
It has to happen.
They're gonna make an example out of somebody, and yeah, so it's gonna be a little tougher. You're gonna have to, we're gonna have to hunker down, tighten our belts a little bit. But I like that better because it just makes. I think it's like strong hands, right? If you just bought in, like the people who bought in October and just rode Bitcoin up to January thinking that's how the market is, that ain't how the market is, right? Half the time of the
Exactly.
market, it's more like this. And, boredom's your biggest thing because you look at the stuff and you want to do something. And yeah, I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah,
So,
they said the market's only trending 30% of the time. So I mean, this down market is really interesting to me because we're seeing regulation coming out, and just the general feel online. There isn't so much hysteria. So I'm really interested to see how we react, respond, going back upwards again when we do accumulate and start working our way back up. Um, as far as the total market cap in general. So that's going to, as far as like which ICOs are going to come out afterwards, which altcoins are going to be listed, like these type of things. I just want to see how we refine and work our way back up. I'm really interested in that.
yeah, no, definitely. So, yeah, basically, it looks like as things are going back to these things, it's going to move more towards accredited investors. And then I think there's a good market opportunity, and this is one of the things we've been trying to facilitate in our mastermind group for like call it special purpose, basically like co-op buys.
Mm,
Co-op's not the right term because there's a legal thing, but like in real estate, nobody, well, not nobody, very few people buy like a mall by themselves. It
of
just
course,
doesn't happen
of course,
because
of
who's
course.
got $30 million sitting in their checking account and can get 70 million in credit to go buy the
Right, of
mall.
course.
What happens is you've got like a GPLP type scenario,
Hmm.
and there's these things called special purpose vehicles and stuff like that. And I think the way as a retail investor, if you're sophisticated, will be to join or find one of these special purpose vehicles that the group can come together and then have one person doesn't have the sophistication, but if 30 people or 100 people get together, you can then cover the cost of the lawyer that's going to do the due diligence, cover the cost of crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's, so you
Mm,
don't get yourself in a spot where you've bought some useless Ethereum token
of
and
course.
you know call that a day. So I don't know, that's just me, and I know we've kind of gotten a little off topic on the
So
market
with
stuff.
the ICO you guys are doing, is that the love token I keep seeing, or is that something separate?
No, 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 no. This is actually pretty cool. What we're doing is this is based on, we're calling it the Jarvis Project, but it's actually separate from what we're actually, what the application is today. So if you look back at it today, Jarvis is essentially a long-term research application. It provides altcoin picks based on good fundamental products. And what kind of separates it from the pack is, from my marketing days, we added an element of sentiment analysis. So I'm not sure if I ever mentioned it to you, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I don't want to say own the market, but I pretty much had locked in the market on cat memes and Disney princess quizzes. So that is today known as clickbait, but back then, right? But essentially, and there might have been some controversy. Actually, it was funny. There is some controversy because of a conversation I had with another project. But essentially, the model was, creating new content is like going viral or coming up with original ideas is really hard. But like the whole model of news is it's all syndication. So like how everyone does it these days. But if you can find inspiring concepts that are about to go viral, like what's the latest big travel picture that's going to go, and then if you can layer that in with distribution in terms of internet distribution, you can just drive tons of traffic and take advantage of the Facebook algorithm. So that's basically what we did, in the media space. We would do that, and then we'd monetize it through ads. So, we basically played all the trends. So, one of my big sellers, like I had a t-shirt during the Trump election where it was like a picture of, and this was selling to the patriot crowd or the conservative, or, there might be other ways of saying it. But like I had a t-shirt with like a picture of Donald and a picture of Hillary on it. And the slogan was bros before hoes. So you can imagine there's some, let's go back to like market demographics, right? The largest, one of the biggest consumers dollar-wise of urban hip-hop music are actually white suburban kids and country kids trying to rebel. So like they all want to be, like they kind of all want to be black in a way. Right. So now they can, like, make their parents happy and be cool and support Trump.
It's knowing your market. You know your market.
So basically, yeah. So our application does that on that front. But that's not what the ICO is around. What the ICO is, or what the project is around, is financial services are purchased on, we want to create a future of what's called programmatic investing. And what I mean by that is today, financial services in general are actually purchased on trust and brand, which if you think about it is an awful reason to buy financial services. But that's the reality of how they're bought. If whether it's a bank, the bank builds the nice bank and everything like that, so you trust it. Whether it's the financial brand or whatever, you've got like the old person or the female, or like it's all brand based. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to build like a data driven infrastructure or a platform where it's housed on the blockchain, and then when you make your investment decisions, you base it based on risk profiles and performance over time. So, people aren't buying things based on squishiness. Because like the way I feel is I buy a financial product all based on performance and risk tolerance. Do you see what I mean?
Sure.
And as a, my secondary background is I know direct response copy really well. What we know sells financial products, whether it's, stuff I work on, stuff competitors work on, is really the quality of the copy. So whatever cool or sensationalist headline you can come up with, get people engaged and stuff like that, that's what sells, copy and stuff like that. So we're trying to disintermediate that, where it's going to be a performance-based business. And ultimately, we want to build it to a point where it's going to be like how the ad business is today. So what I mean by that is, and thanks for asking, because this helps me practice my pitch, because I'm still like working on it.
My pleasure.
And I'd be curious to get your feedback. But what I want to get to is like web pages 20 years ago, when you bought like a banner ad, it was similar. It's similar to how finance was today. Meaning you would look at a web page and say, okay, I like that web page. People on that web page are probably going to be customers for me. So let me go call them up and negotiate a contract, and I'll go, put some display ads on that. That's like how it was years ago. Now, as data has progressed, nobody buys, well, not nobody, most people buy web pages based on, I want to target, like, let's say I have a hockey jersey to sell. I want to target people in cold climates who are male. Maybe it's like 30 to 39 or who buy hockey jerseys, who like have beards. Like there's so much data. Do you see what I mean?
Sure, sure.
It allows for that. So what I believe we want to get to is a data-driven world where now when I invest, I don't invest in, your system or some other guy's system or someone else's system. I say there's a profile of a investee that I want to invest in. Maybe it's a guy who's got, 5 years of experience, has been doing some Forex, takes these sorts of trades. Do you see what I mean? And then instead of me, calling you and negotiating something and, with you, like you'll have a minimum investment size on that. Maybe it's 50 grand, maybe it's 20 grand. If it was all on the blockchain, I could literally do that and then kind of tokenize the whole thing and buy like 30 shares of like you and 29 other people like you and see how all the trading works. Do you see what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. So,
no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of our ambition. It's obviously we've got, big dreams and we'll see where it goes. So yeah, that's kind of the route we're going and we're excited about it and everything on that front.
So as far as like the data aspect, as far as the actual performance, that's going to be housed on the blockchain as well, as far as what actually transpired over year 1, year 5, year 10. How would that actually break down?
Well, think about this. I mean, you're a trader and you look at all these guys out there.
Sure.
And we've had this conversation probably. You look at these guys and you're like, this guy's got 100,000 followers, but he's just spouting nonsense and he's not telling you.
Right.
Ultimately, if you think there would be, and literally you've got me like, we're literally like still working this through. But think of it where like every position you took, like let's say in your case, let's say you came up with a signals app, hypothetically. And I'm not saying you do or not, but let's say it's like you say, I'm going to put a signal out and then we'll see how it works. If all that was tracked on the blockchain and there was like a 3 or 4 year history on that, that'd actually be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see what I mean? And then you're not sitting here like making sure like, because if you think about it, anyone who's buying a signals, I mean, there's certain realities of things. There's a certain demographic you're going to appeal to, and then there's a certain demographic you won't appeal to. You know what I mean? And that's stupid. Right? People should buy your product based on your performance and their appetite for risk. It shouldn't be on the fact that, hey, I don't like your hat, or hey, I wish you were clean shaven, or hey, I wish you were a female, or hey, I wish you were Asian, or hey, I wish you were black. It should be purchased on that.
Right.
Especially with financial products. Financial products are all about risk and returns. It's
Sure.
not about how we feel. That's what I believe. So ultimately, that's kind of what the project is going to try to solve, is having a data-driven, performance-driven model where results are tracked. People make decisions based on results, and ultimately we can get to the point where it'll really help, I think, on the crowdfunding side and the small side. Like there's trading. Think of real estate investing. You got a guy. Let's say there's a guy or a girl. Let's be open-minded. That does foreclosures and targets $100,000 homes in suburban tier 2 cities, meaning like not an NFL city, so it's like maybe like Cleveland or Columbus, Ohio, or these places, and targets people making 50 to 60 grand a year, spends 70 grand on the house, flips it, does it. Do you see what I mean?
Of course.
Something like that to basically invest in is very risky because they can't tokenize or crowdfund. You see what I mean? But that person's not that special. That is not a very special snowflake. Like, yes, he's unique in his own, or she is unique in their own way, but there's probably 500 people like that all around the country in different aspects, or maybe there's 50. And if I had that data set, like especially like a big data play, do you see what I mean? And I could like parse that out and say, okay, I want to invest in foreclosures targeting, suburbs in tier 2 places, or I want to focus on someone who's flipping houses in urban places or gentrification areas, or or in Africa or in Southeast Asia. Do you see what I mean? That'd be kind of cool if you had the data for that. So that's ultimately kind of the route we're going. And I know I'm kind of talking all over the place because we
No,
have.
it's actually pretty interesting. So in that instance, where if you had a conglomerate of people that were flipping houses, you would actually tokenize that event to where for an investor, I could buy X amount of coins that would allocate for those particular projects.
Yeah, there'd actually be, and this is where we're still figuring out. It actually would be a two-tier system.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be, our token would be our token is solving a reputation brand problem. So we're basically tokenizing the value of the brand or the value of trust or the value of performance, which is all related. And
Sure.
there's actually various aspects of it. Like with real estate, it's more passive. But if think about it, think of like a signals thing where like the quality, it's not just the performance, but it also could be the communication.
Sure.
And it could be how somebody reacts to the communication. So maybe a 30-year-old, let's say it's you, maybe a 30-year-old male like reacts perfectly to your signals.
Mm.
But like a 20-year-old male does not. And a 50-year-old, do you see what I mean? Or maybe it's a function of certain financial education that they've had, where like if they've taken, if they've done these education credits or they have this level of financial literacy, your signals work really well. But if their financial literacy is here, your signals just tank them because they're just in way over their head. Do you see
Right,
what I
of
mean?
course. Right, right.
So it's a combination of a lot of things that we're trying to, pull together. You see what I mean? But yeah,
Mm.
ultimately, it would be a brand reputation. It would be a two-tier token economy where there's a brand reputation side, and then there would possibly be either a security token or with some sort of asset exchange, stored value token underneath. So maybe it's just Bitcoin sending back and forth, and then we add like a polymath or something for securitization, as the deals become more sophisticated on that front.
Got you. Got you. But this can really extend to a lot of different financial markets, though. I mean, you guys have a pretty wide array of things you can kind of pull into this.
Yeah, I mean, the initial thing is, well, it's actually cool. I need to follow up with them, but I met this is a good application for an Indiegogo, I feel.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And, I met the ICO guy there and I need to follow up on that and see, where that goes. But I got the name and, he won't remember me. So I got to be creative in my marketing to get through to him. But, that's what I do. Do you see what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, we actually, one of the kickoffs of this is I feel we're basically trying to angle US and Africa and US and Southeast Asia, specifically Vietnam and Indonesia, because those are like major developing countries. And there are demographics in both of those areas that have that feeling or want to invest in their emerging market. Do you see what I mean on
Right.
that front? Because it's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, those are kind of the two initial markets. And with that, being able, like having a brand thing and a crypto thing in play to like send money back and forth easily and to do that and then to securitize it or make it into a portfolio, it actually becomes a really interesting product. I feel on that front.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense.
So yeah.
How far are you guys along in the development? Like, when do y'all plan on rolling out?
Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to finish up the white paper. So a lot of the development has just been, figuring out platforms and stuff like that. And the reality of this is it's still going to be a new thing. So by the time we launch the white paper and get that together, we're probably going to tokenize and try to raise some money around that. Just so we have, the thing is, it's one of those, this becomes more of a strategic play. It's important. So what's interesting is from the marketing side, I guess I'm not saying we're against development, but it's more, and here's an interesting strategy discussion, actually. It really becomes a function of we need to create belief in the token, because the stronger the token gets and the story gets, the project kind of gets too big to fail. Do you see what I mean?
Of course.
So like what I mean by that is I'm not saying I'm not focused on the tech side. There's a bunch of tech stuff going on. We actually wrote our own blockchain too. Um, but it's really about getting the token out there and getting it listed. Because once the token is listed and it's there, I can then start paying, I can incentivize with actual token value. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
And the big thing, I'm not as concerned about the development. I think the development's important. The big thing is to drive the users onto the platform. So if I can drive 100,000 people on the platform and stuff like that, and I will drive them with free tokens. Do you see what I mean? So like ultimately, imagine if I could, offer our research product. People pay, there's I think like $2 or $3 grand a year for it, or a couple $100 a month. If I had tokens worth like an altcoin worth like $200 million, and I could say, hey, you buy the research, but you get it free because you get tokens equivalent to what you paid for it for free. That's gonna drive traffic. And then if that's on it, and then I have like someone like you on this, or like the pot stock guy, or like this whole ecosystem that they can then spend their tokens on to get other access to other products and stuff like. Do you see what I mean? That becomes kind of interesting, and that's ultimately our idea for all this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So do you guys have a concern as far as like the Bitcoin price as to when you want to deploy the actual ICO? Is that not important?
I think I'm figuring all that out. I don't have an answer on that.
Because I feel that when Bitcoin is actually on the ascend again, that would actually bring a lot more just general confidence back into the market. So,
yeah.
Doing an ICO in these bear markets may present some challenges. So I was just curious.
No, you're definitely right. I mean, we are probably, realistically speaking, we are aiming to quote unquote launch ICO or whatever. We're going to launch it in May in terms of public announcement, and then over the summers we're really going to start pushing. And this will be an interesting one. I know my crystal ball isn't perfect and nowhere near as good as yours, but I'm fairly confident that I believe there will be a pop in the market sometime in the early summer. It will cool, but the pop will get people excited. And my goal is to get the excitement going, catch that pop in early summer, and then really hit the exchanges hard into the fall when the main drive gets going. And we're doing everything now to like be ready for when, the opportunity arises.
I mean, I think you guys got some really intriguing tools, and the way that you plan on tokenizing the project, I think is really unique. I mean, for someone to be able to acquire some tokens, especially if they're already investing in Jarvis, for instance, and use those tokens to get signals or to participate in someone else's financial, professional career or path. I mean, that's pretty unique.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to boil down to, it's definitely helpful. I mean, between us and the other kind of 2 main or 3 main partners that are going to be driving the project, combined revenues, and these are all financial services sales. We're talking about $300 million annually in financial service sales, whether it's research, whether it's offerings or savings. Do you see what I mean? And the brand spend right now is around 160 million on that front. Some of it's through Google, some of it's through Facebook, some of it's like for a physical location on a bank.
You said 160 million a month?
No, a year. A
year.
160 million a year on 300 million in revenues. What is shocking is for financial services, so much is spent on marketing. And it's not, they don't call it marketing, but it's on trust.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if did you ever sell credit card processing before or looked at insurance or any of those products?
I've looked into insurance and credit card processing at some time ago. So
yeah, I mean, with credit card processing, customer acquisition costs, they pay 70% of profits. And basically profits is revenue just to go acquire customers.
Absolutely.
And insurance is a similar thing. If you look at like mutual fund, that 1% that goes to mutual fund, about 50 to 60% of it goes to the financial advisor who is just there to like, build a relationship and build the trust and everything on that side.
Right. Of course. Yes. It's not cheap.
No, it's not. So like the 2 things that are cool is First, there's that. There's the token play, and then there are two companies in the quote unquote millennial robo advisor investing spaces. One is called Betterment, and the other is Wealthfront,
Right.
that
Yeah.
are
Very familiar.
close to the billion-dollar unicorn stage.
Mm.
So, like, do you see what I mean? So, like, with all this sort of stuff, I'm I'm not saying confident. I believe there's an opportunity for me to get into the market at the $100 million valuation out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And then with a few more wins that come in, and then with adoption and driving traffic and everything like that, I think I can jump us up to $500 million to $1 billion in the next year or something like that.
So, are you interested in the robo investment for the crypto side as well?
Oh yeah, that's a separate discussion that we should have on that. I mean, between signals and all that, like my interest is building if you look at like what's on my mind, the primary thing is, I mean, first I still need to keep, our research thing going because we got to keep the lights on that side.
Yeah,
Otherwise it's just a big check. So that's not fun. So like that has tempered our burn on that side, which is a good thing. The next thing is to start building out ecosystem of things. First, to kind of keep our existing customers happy and have like cross-sell opportunities and stuff like that, but also to get things ready to kind of seed the ecosystem on that. Do you see what I mean? On that front. So those are the things. And then, oh, did I lose you? Uh-oh, I think I lost him. Oh, well, yeah, that's that. I lost Yusuf. So for anyone who's still on, I think it's, oh my gosh, we went way over. We got distracted. But thanks for tuning in. Until next week, we'll give an update. I probably reveal a little too much under the hood, but you get me talking and sometimes I just chat. And we'll see. Yusuf said there's a big thing going on Tuesday. I know there's a fundamental change, or not a fundamental change, a fundamental event that could occur on Tuesday that could have ramifications. He's saying Bitcoin at 5,300 or 5,800. Oh, you're back again. Hey, you still there? Hey, did I lose you or are you back?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I lost you. What was you saying?
We were just wrapping up. So we've kind of gone a little beyond things and stuff like that. So yeah, going back to Chris, let me just say, Chris, you mentioned about the scope. If you check the pinned post, if you're a member of the Digital Underground, all that's been tracked and the scope hasn't really evolved. The scope hasn't really changed. It is, it's still starting with, when I talked about the vision, I'm talking like a 5 or 10 year vision. But let's just wrap this up. So wrapping up predictions for the week. You think it's going to bounce at 5,300?
We'll see really Tuesday to see where the market responds. But right now, I'm looking at what I'm anticipating to take place is that we get a rejection somewhere between $85,000 and $9,000, and then for us to continue downward. If we get breakoutwards, then that would change things. But like I said in my prior lives that we've done, videos that we've done, I have a plot, I have a plan, but to execute that plan, it's all predicated on real-time price action. So if I get that real-time price action confirmation, I'll be in another short. I'll be sharing it with you and Lawrence because I think it's important to see actionable step as far as what is really happening versus what I think will happen in the chart that I shared.
No, definitely. So this will be exciting. And I think on Friday, Mark Moss will be back. He's been on vacation. So we'll have another fun person to, get the conversation even more spiked up. So
yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. I want to see his views and sentiments on the market as well, because he does a little bit of the technical stuff. So I'll be really curious to see what he's.
Yeah, I know he's much stronger than me on technical. And I mean, see, it's funny, right? Like we all have our different perspectives. You're hardcore trading. Mark is an investor who knows technical, and I'm actually a software tech guy. Not as technical from your stuff, but I understand like technology and stuff like that. So it's always a good interaction. So we'll keep our fingers crossed Your signal's kind of bad, so I'll just kind of wrap up. We'll keep our fingers crossed. You'll give an update, see what happens for tomorrow. And I'm kind of hoping for 5,800 or 5,300 so I can kind of buy in. So, we'll see how it goes.
Me too.
All right. Great catching up. Everyone who's tuned in, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you guys soon. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.